Hello, everyone. Welcome, thank you back to the Triforce podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
that's right.
We're back. Thank you.
It's pushing into late November. The weather is setting in. There it is rainy and cold, but we are snug inside with a warm cup of vanilla honey chamomile tea.
Oh,
and
God.
Our two best friends.
Vile.
Yeah. He's just gone full Karen mode here with his special blend of herbal tea and his thick frame glasses and his hot takes on local politics and stuff as well.
I've been combining tea bags lately.
What, like to cut your costs? The cost of living crisis.
No, I've just been mixing it up because I've got loads of fruit teas, but they're all too weak and like I don't know. I think that's the big problem I have. I know you're supposed to brew them for longer, but
can I make a suggestion?
What?
When was the last time you just drank like black tea, like a Yorkshire Gold or something like that?
Well, there's the Yorkshire biscuit brew. I drink that sometimes at the office. But sometimes I don't want the caffeine. You know, when I'm
come on, man, you don't want the caffeine.
I don't think there's much caffeine in.
Get it in you, mate. Come on.
I'm not worried about this is a joke, but you know, it's starting to get to the point where you stand up and you're dizzy. You know, you're like the caffeine is like making you shake more.
What are you 40? You're 40 next year, right?
Yeah, I'm already frazzled from all sorts of things, and I don't know. I only really need caffeine when I want to actually wake up or be higher energy. There's a lot of stressy things happening at the moment. So, you know, as we approach Jingle Jam, like a lot of weird questions to deal with, a lot of like awkward scheduling, gentle poking.
So in your average serving of coffee, there's nearly 100 milligrams of caffeine.
Jesus.
And there's 1/5 of that amount in tea.
Not green tea.
Still a little bit.
Pretty similar.
Still
It is a little
caffeine.
bit. But it's definitely... I don't drink coffee very often. I might have a cup today because tell you what, I'm fucking knackered already. I've done nothing and I'm bloody knackered. I don't know why. Mrs. F has COVID.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I think her coughing at night, we reckon, might have been subtly waking me up without me realizing, so I might be tired from that. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm having it worse than she is. She has COVID. I'm just suggesting why I might be tired. She's had it for about 3 days now. I've tested negative. I don't know how, but, you know, I basically haven't got it. The kids
you
haven't
were
got
patient zero, though, of COVID.
Yeah, you're the first person I knew to have it.
If there's a disease, I will get it. That's just the way it is. I've had it all. Ebola, HIV, what else have I had?
Leprosy.
Leprosy, I was going to say the one that makes bits of you rot off.
Yeah, it's
MRSA superbug, riddled with that, I'm sure. I'm just one of those people. Germs love me.
I read actually this morning for the podcast that scientists have been researching leprosy and they found...
Yeah, it's a good hot topic for them to get their teeth into. Well done,
what
science.
it does is it like keeps you alive. Like what it does is it like regenerates some of your organs to
like
keep you alive
style.
Longer.
Are you saying Deadpool is a leper?
So it can spread.
It's just a leper. Are you sure?
But
does it regenerate them in hideous and twisted new forms?
I don't know.
Terrifying to the mortal mind.
I think they found it was regenerating someone's liver, which is obviously great news for Yogscast.
But like a monster
in the future,
liver.
Judging by how much everyone drinks.
Do you reckon they're going to start giving people leprosy just as a way of regenerating tissue?
Well, I
just
mean,
a dose.
I'm going to California for my advanced leper treatment sesh. It's going to last a couple of days. And,
like a leprosy and Pilates course.
Yeah. You get some leprosy implants into your...
Drink your leprosy tea. It's caffeine-free. Don't worry, Lewis. And sit back and relax. Take a deep breath of that leper air that we've cultivated here at Leprosy Pilates. And then downward dog and into upward dog. Oh, sorry, Mr. Jones, your leg's falling off. I'll get that for you. It will grow back. It will grow back.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is cool, though. I like this. I like science that finds stuff like that. The good things from bad, you know? It's good. It's inspirational, right?
Motivational.
Yeah,
sure.
Motivational. Yeah, makes you think.
What star sign are you, Lewis?
I am.
He's got to be a Sagittarius.
Sagittarius.
Leo.
When's your birthday?
October 22nd.
October 22nd.
It's not Pisces.
You are a Libra.
It's
You're
not,
right on
it's
the
not Gemini.
You're right on the Libra-Scorpio cusp. Would you like today's horoscope? This is incredible.
Yeah, but you're going to also have to give me the Scorpio cusp.
I'll give you both. Don't worry. I'll give you guys your horoscopes. These fascinate
There must be
me.
a name for people who are on the cusp.
There is.
You know?
Yeah.
They're called cuspians.
They're called cuspies.
November 17th. Your plane is fueled, your bags are packed, and you have clearance from the control tower. But for some reason, Libra, you just can't seem to get off the ground.
Damn.
Perhaps there are details of the trip that you haven't taken into account. People are firing questions at you, and you don't have all the answers. This is especially true when it comes to matters of love and romance. You are down to earth, but you need to believe in something more. There you go.
Wow.
Scorpio.
It feels like it's very apt.
I know.
It feels
Scorpio.
Like that's how they're written, though, isn't it?
It is. But that one didn't apply to me. Scorpio, the person who is most organized and stable will win the race, so let it be you. Scorpio. Be careful, though. Other people may try to distract you from your work. You may be in the middle of an important project and decide to take a break. Before you know it, the phone rings and suddenly you're trapped with no escape. The break that you hoped that would take no more than 5 minutes has turned into a big interruption. That sounds like the Triforce podcast.
Yeah, it sounds like
Intriguingly, they're both about work. Okay, they
Yeah.
honestly sound like they're both about work, which is funny because if I'd read either of those to you, you might have thought that they were applicable, which is of course the whole point. I'm Aries, so there's an advantage to joining people in a social or family situation if possible, Aries. Your role today is to bridge communication gaps. Be aware of details that need doing, but don't feel like you have to do them all yourself. This is a good time to delegate responsibility. Keep track of who is in charge of what you could end up taking up the slack for a job that someone else is supposed to do. Okay?
Wow.
So get someone else to do your work.
These are all very, like...
Dog shit?
They're all obviously... They're all very good pieces of generic advice.
Yes, they are. Exactly. That's literally it. And you could just rotate these.
Thing.
Like what you could do is next
actual...
month just move them all one to the right. And, because how often do you read other star sign stars, the zodiacs?
You never would.
What's yours, Sips?
Gemini.
You've reached a climactic time of year regarding love and romance. Gemini.
Oh, yeah.
This is the time when your dream finally materializes. Or you realize that all your efforts are failures. It all depends on how you played your cards over the past few months. This is one of those moments of reckoning when you face reality. You must bring your craft to the landing strip and check in with mission control. Fucking hell. What on earth does any of that mean? What a load of bollocks.
I don't know, but I'm going to get on the horn to mission control ASAP to make sure that all my T's are dotted and my I's are crossed and whatever. Yes, man.
That is startlingly... I mean, they're startlingly vague, but also I'm genuinely surprised by how they're not harmful, though, are they? Right? They're not like...
No.
The advice tends to be like Karen-ish advice. It's kind of boomer advice. Pick up the phone. I mean, the reference to the phone.
The phone rings.
It's obviously... Funny. It feels like that's been copy-pasted from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe they do. They just, because they're also...
People still
like
pick up the phone. You got to pick up the phone. That's
no,
not
I
going
have
to
it
change.
strapped to my head.
Phone. No.
I mean, you do pick up your phone to answer.
People slide into each other's DMs more so now, I think, though, right? Before the phone pickup happens.
I wonder if there are any non-boomer horoscopes out there, like boomers for the youth.
Horoscopes
Yeah,
for
but
kids.
it's just going to be junk, right? It's gonna be like Aries. Today is gonna be poggers. It's just gonna be all fucking like Twitch or internet speak.
Scorpio,
right? Bro.
Today's gonna suck. No cap. For real. On God,
bro.
I feel like this is like it feels like self-help book advice, right? About how to.
People. The thing is that they're so vague.
Put off that task you've been doing waiting to do, you'll feel better once it's done.
That's it. It's so vague in general that it can apply to anyone and everyone, right? Like you can convince yourself that it applies directly to you. It's like it's like tarot card readings and stuff like that as well.
Maybe there are things that everyone does though. Like maybe you could do more specific ones, like be careful when you're doing a poo. Because
I'd like a really specific one, like 1:53 p.m. You can expect an acorn to fall off of your house and land on the third brick on your driveway. You know what I mean? Like then I'd be impressed. I'd be like, holy shit! But
especially if you didn't have an acorn or a house or a driveway.
But all the general vague stuff is just kind of like you know, it's just like magicians, you know, just magicians trying to. It's like David Blaine, you know, like the levitating trick, but it was really just like the angle that you looked at him from, and as you know, he lifted his other foot, and it looked like he was levitating.
the Balducci levitation.
Yes,
it's one of my few party tricks.
It's a good one, but
it is.
You know what I mean? It's not what it claims to be.
No, but so he would do that. But then they would cut to a wide shot of him literally levitating like 5 feet off the ground with a wire.
Yeah.
And people going, whoa. And it's like, no, come on. You can't just cut between the two. That's silly. Like they show the reaction of a very simple trick. If you look, they're all looking down at his feet. Whereas on the wide shot, it looks like he's fucking floating in midair. He's a bit of a nutter. Yeah. But he was an incredible magician. Yeah, I just wish he stuck to the magic and not the I'm going to live in a box for a month shit. Just do magic.
Yeah, I guess but once you've done the magic though, where do you go from there? You know, you gotta it's showmanship. You gotta one up yourself all the time. You can't just do the same goddamn routine like over and over and over and over again. People get bored of it.
So he should stretch the bounds of magic, not do these big sort of I'm gonna live in ice and I mean it's amazing PR.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he made a bunch of money out of it. But all I'm saying is that it doesn't feel like a magic trick. Yeah. You just feel like you're being tricked. And it's almost certainly that he swaps out for someone else. I mean, when he lived in the glass box, I don't know how he did it, where he just lived up there with no food or whatever. But it's just like, who cares? It's not. I mean, you saw what did people think of it? Who gave a shit?
Nobody gave
gives a shit.
No.
People threw stuff at him and shone lasers at him and shouted abuse. Like, it's just don't hang yourself there. Like, look at me. Just do the fucking magic tricks. There have been a ton of magicians out there who are legends and amazing magicians, and you don't need to suspend yourself in a fucking box. At that point, I think it's ego more than stretching the bounds of what you can do with magic. Personally speaking, I found them dull.
Yeah, I think the survival stuff is... it was a fad, though. It was definitely a long time ago. Those stunts. I haven't seen one for ages and ages.
What about Darren Brown mind tricks and all that stuff?
I like that stuff.
I never watched any of that.
There were some really good ones. I've seen some mentalist stuff live, and it can be very impressive.
I went to one in Vegas, I think, a mentalist show. I think you were there, Lewis. You and whoever we were with at the time. I'm sure it was one year we went to BlizzCon. We went to Vegas after, and we went to one of those shows, and it was okay. I don't know.
It's impressive. I mean, it's a magic trick. It's a magic trick under a different name,
I guess,
which I like. But there's there is suggestion and stuff like that you can do. I mean, there's also there are certain tricks that people use. Let me see if I can find one for you guys. You guys talk amongst yourselves for a sec.
I feel like there's obviously different aspects of magic, right? One is this incredibly, immensely prepared magic where someone has something that's been, put so much effort into something, but you don't realize it. It just looks like it's just a throwaway thing, right? It's just like, oh, let's just put this orange here, and but actually there's like a whole rigmarole. There's like a stooge who grabs the orange from behind your back, and someone's in on it, and someone else is like passing it around. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of a lot of work to make a simple trick work sometimes, and sometimes it's just skill, like sleight of hand, like someone has practiced and practiced and practiced and are so deft that they're able to vanish something, or especially card tricks, like people just able to remember the order or put things in the same order. I think that's the thing about those types of magic, that it's just humans being amazing, right?
Yeah.
A human who has taught themselves or spent their entire life playing with a pack of cards to the point where they have their routine down. It's incredibly practiced, the distractions and the jokes and the delivery, even to the point where they have this almost like this character that they've composed, which is, either stupid or I really love the clumsy attitude, like the clumsy magician, who is, I've dropped everything, right. But actually it's incredibly well controlled. I really have a lot of time for that stuff, because it is amazing.
It is.
Yeah, sure.
I'm a big fan of that kind of sleight of hand magic, because it's just like anything, when you're witnessing the results of literally years of practice and expertise. And I think it's exciting to see people who are very, very good at something, especially something that, I mean, if you see someone who can do the long jump really well, it's impressive and you're rooting for them. But I don't really know how hard it is to do the long jump. But when you see someone able to do all kinds of card tricks, I've shuffled cards. I can do the riffle shuffle.
I can fumble a pack of cards together, yeah.
And when you see them do it, you're like, holy shit, how have they done that? You think, wow, because I know that when I learned to do the riffle shuffle, it took me quite a long time just to learn that.
Yeah.
And they're learning to do that thing where you hold the deck in one hand and rotate different parts around.
They probably worked in a casino and stuff, you know? Like, I think a lot of magicians, there's like not like a set path, but there's definitely, you know, like places that they can work where they can hone their craft. You know?
Oh, yeah.
They can work at a casino and practice their dexterity and agility.
You could just do it without having to work at a casino as well. Like,
I think you'd have to. You need the
Where else are you going to get the cards from?
Exactly. And where else are they going to pay you to sit around and fart around with cards for, like, you know, 12 hours a day or whatever, you know? Like, you need the time investment and stuff too. Like, I think that's like one example of a place where a aspiring magician could work leading up to them becoming a full-time paid magician, you know?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
All right, I want you to think of a number between 1 and 50.
Okay.
All right, you can both do this. Now, it has to have 2 digits.
Right.
And they have to be 2 odd digits. So each digit has to be odd, and they can't be the same number.
Okay. I thought of one. Right.
Is the number 37?
It is, actually, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the reason you can do that is because the numbers 1 to 10, all of the 20s, the 40s, and 50 have been removed. So basically, you're reduced down more often. People aren't going to pick 11. They're not going to pick 19, apparently hardly ever. And basically, it's going to be 31, 35. Yeah, 31, 35, 37, or 39 are the ones that are most likely going to be picked.
Yeah, I just went through, like, after you gave me all the parameters and narrowed it down, I was just like my
there weren't many left.
Yeah, so the first place I went was 37.
But you don't anticipate that as being the case. You just think you've been given any number from 1 to 50, but of course you have not. It's much sneakier than that. So a lot of the mentalist tricks are things like that, where they guide you. There's a certain number of things that you'll think of. Darren Brown uses suggestion, and he'll make people think of things, and he'll touch them when he says things. Like you'll see he just holds their wrist, or he taps them on the shoulder, or you'll just notice if you watch him, he touches you, and that changes the way you're thinking, and you're more open to suggestion when someone touches you. So it's weird. It's sort of not hypnosis, but that's sort of planting an idea in someone's brain with the things that you say. He also does things where he puts giant fucking billboards outside their house that have something on it that they're meant to think of later in the day.
I wonder how much of that is just for show, though, part of the illusion. Because I think with Darren Brown, he does want to distract even the audience from how the trick was done. And sometimes these... You know, I think the idea of him subliminally implanting ideas into people's minds with billboards and things. Sure. I think it's true, and I think it's true for us as people. You know, I'll have a conversation with you. I'll see an article about leprosy. I'll mention it to you guys. You'll mention it to someone else later on, or whatever. Or you'll listen to a podcast and you'll tell people interesting things you heard from that. There is definitely this viral effect of people, and I think if you can get into someone's life and talk them round philosophically or interest, you know, if you can figure out ways to infiltrate someone's life, you can definitely manipulate their behavior in a sort of CIA spy way, you know, in a sense, which is these tactics have existed for a very long time. But I think that they are magic in some ways, like, because you don't know at the time that you're being manipulated, and so when you are forced to choose a thing, you think it's an independent choice, but they know because they've done the homework of implanting these, you know, laying the seeds for your decision, you know, and so and I don't know but I'm always skeptical about Darren telling me how it's done, because you know, especially things like micro movements, it's like, oh, you know, think of a number, and then he's like, I know exactly what number you're thinking of because your mouth micro moved the word 42 or whatever.
Right.
Oh,
I'm like, is that real?
Happen?
And like, and how practiced are you with that? And like,
it's Penn and Teller, isn't it? Are like I'd say they're probably some of the most famous sort of classical magicians. Of
stage magicians for sure.
Proper magicians. They do magic tricks. The cleverest part is that they show you what they're doing while they're doing it, and they still surprise you. Like, that's the cleverest part. Is it looks like they're
showing you all the stuff that it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're sort of deconstructing the trick before your very eyes, and you think, oh, they're letting us in on some big secret, but they're not. They're still tricking you. I think that's my favorite part. It's very
makes
clever.
it more exciting, right? Because I think partly because a lot of stupid people are like, oh yeah, well the gun's not real, is it? So obviously they have to convince you that the gun's real, and then the next group of people are like, well, he's probably got some sponge in his mouth or something. It's like, what?
Yeah, the old mouth sponge.
And people come up with these really stupid suggestions for what it could be. So I think by laying that groundwork, it makes it. But also, when in a sense you really have to. If you just did the trick, the show would be over in 10 seconds, right?
Right.
You have to have this build up. You have to have this show, right, where it becomes exciting, and also people love solving problems. Look at like detective mysteries or stories, and even if you're not actively sitting down taking notes when you're watching, a murder mystery,
right?
You are in the back of your mind thinking, oh, this might be this guy, or I wonder what happened there. You're doing little bits of putting the little things together. It's nice to see the mystery unspooled, before you, and think, oh yeah, of course that thing happened. Oh yeah, and it's the same thing with magic tricks. Like once you know how it's done, it's like, oh, of course that's how it's done.
Right. I would say that there are certain giveaways that, like for any magic trick, it's almost always either a fake whatever they suggest it is, a fake ball or a fake deck of cards or a fake gun or whatever. Like that's number one, is they have trick versions of pretty much everything. Sleight of hand is the other, like guaranteed, it's almost certainly that. Like you thought they gave you this one, but they gave you a different one. Like that's the other one. Like anytime they ask you, sign this card and then put it back in the deck, they've almost always palmed it off. As soon as you put it in the deck, they know exactly where it is and they've stuck it into their pocket. I feel
like what we're doing here, though, is possibly being just punters, right? We are just speculating wildly. We don't know. We're not magicians. We don't know what their secrets are. And every magician has their own secrets. A lot of magicians don't know other magicians' secrets.
It's true. But there is a whole wealth. So have you ever watched Fool Me with Penn and Teller?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Right. So on there, the guy goes on and the magician does the trick and Penn and Teller watch, and then they come up and they say, we think you used we think that there was some Saskatchewan shuffle taking place, if you know what I mean. And they're like, yeah. So they're like talking about some specific technique that other magicians would know. And then if they say, was that part of the trick? And they say, no, it wasn't. Then they're like, then you have fooled us. And as I understand it, they then have to show the trick to Penn and Teller subsequently, how they did it, sort of thing.
Yes, but sometimes they can't say, oh, you used sleight of hand necessarily. And it's like when it comes to card tricks, they can't be fooled by someone who's just got a really good memory, or this like that guy I mentioned with the cards. I think he was on there. He, I think there's a few of them, and it's hard to, because they don't use obvious techniques. They're just human skill. It's like someone who's a very good juggler. They just, they're not tricking you.
But if you have amazing sleight of hand, if you have amazing sleight of hand, there is still a sequence in the trick where you do that. And I think some of those things they will mention as being like techniques. And this guy may do it better, but the main thing is these magicians coming up with new ways of doing old tricks. So they'll say, this is this technique. And when the guy says, no, it wasn't that, they're like, well, then you fooled us because we didn't see how it was done other than that. So that's the clever part. But
it's a great show.
Some of the people that go on there, like you can look up on YouTube subsequently, how was this trick done? Like genuinely. And I always watch those videos because I really want to know how it's done. And there are there are people that, like, the whole magic circle thing, as soon as the internet came around, it was done. It was done because, anybody can just anonymously reveal how magic tricks are done and remain in the magic circle no problemo. Because previously, in order to explain how tricks were done, you had to put a book out. And everybody would know who wrote the book, and you'd be booted out of the magic circle, and these secrets are not allowed. But you can look up how any magic trick is done now on YouTube, which has kind of taken some of the fun away from it. But I still enjoy the skill.
Oh, absolutely. I, like I said before, I'm still quite skeptical of that, because I think magic is all about misdirection. It's all about putting out a false narrative, either seeding it in your audience or in the world, about your style of trick. And so when people Google or on their phone in your audience, how is this trick done? They don't, not that people are doing that. I think a lot of people are willing to enjoy it, right? And not think too hard. Or I don't think that's a fun game. You don't sit around necessarily plotting to the downfall of this magician, or like getting up on stage and poking around at the back, unless they specifically ask you to do it,
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this man is tricking us. This glass case has a false back. Gasps in the crowd. Arrest that man.
I love the idea that you set up a magic trick where you've got these props and they've all got like magic things in them, like secret mirrors and hidden compartments. You invite someone up to the stage and they just find them all. And you're like, oh shit. It's just like a swinging door on the back of this cupboard and, all that stuff. Yeah. Magic's got this kind of hammy charm, right?
But that's the thing, is like the classic magician style with the beautiful assistant wearing the tutu or whatever is kind of a really dated style of magic. I don't think you see that so much anymore.
No,
maybe you still
not
do.
Anymore.
But it feels cheesy.
But it's almost a cheesy meme, though. Like, in a sense, like some people use it as a setting in the same way that you might use like a horror set, or like a theme your act up in a Halloween kind of a creepy way, or some sort of I don't know, like some glamorous way. There's definitely there's different types of people doing different kinds of magic, and yeah, I remember like I don't know, you still see it sometimes, and it's cute. I also really like the idea of during World War II, people, asking magicians to like give them advice on like how to disguise tanks or something, or how to vanish things. Yeah, classic. They did. There was a lot of like that sort of stuff, like because they're like, oh, this magician's managed to make a whole harbor full of ships vanish into thin air. How could he do that could he work for the military in some ways? So there was definitely like some of that. And I think they helped create camouflage and things like this, right? And
magicians
and stuff like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
come on.
I think there was like a sure.
I cannot for 1 minute believe that. There's no way magicians came up with that, right? Like that had to have just been a natural sort of like evolutionary. It makes sense for us to blend in with our surroundings. Like,
but you've got to think that some of these techniques that are usable might be helpful, right? Because when you're thinking, damn, this guy, look, I can't see any ships in this harbor. It's obviously a whole rigmarole of giant mirrors suspended at an angle from exactly where you are that you can't see anything, right? But you could also imagine that they might have some, if you know what the answers are, maybe there's one of those tricks is useful for making a gadget, or some form of technology that might have a use. Certainly reading about what the sort of things the Brits did during World War II is fascinating, because they had this one guy,
Jasper Maskelyne, was a British stage musician. He was also used by the military during the Second World War, claiming to have created large-scale ruses, deception, and camouflage in an effort to defeat the Nazis.
There you go.
They should make a movie about this guy.
They should.
I'm about to pull off my biggest trick. Get me the giant mirror.
The head of the A-Force Deception Department recruited Maskelyne to work for MI9 in Cairo. But there is no MI9. Exactly. He created small devices intended to assist soldiers to escape if captured and lectured on escape techniques. These included tools hidden in cricket bats, saw blades inside combs, and small maps and objects such as playing cards.
Maybe he's the guy who came up with the idea for hiding inside a cardboard box. And then like
the Nazis hate cardboard boxes. They'll never think to look for you there.
Oh, just a box.
They were here a moment ago. That's right, my friends. He's hiding. We must look for this man. He's very cunning. He's just in a box.
He's hiding in a box.
Solid snake skull moving across the ground.
Shit.
So he claimed to have done a lot of things. His contributions are either absolutely central, if you believe his account on that of his biographer, or very marginal, if you believe the official records.
Oh, man.
He claimed all kinds of things. He claimed he made, like, boats disappear. He conjured up surprise submarines that tricked the Germans and all kinds of daft stuff like that.
Nice.
He had inflatable tanks and things like this.
Well, they did that. So they actually did that ahead of D-Day. Because there was a lot of... It was all part of a big intelligence scam. Someone will write in and say that I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct. They had this big scam where they basically fed misinformation to the Germans for a very long time that the attack was going to come somewhere else, that it would be from Dover to the nearest point of France. And of course, it didn't come there. I think they were expecting Calais, and they had a lot of forces around Calais. But the Germans were completely convinced that this was an assault taking place somewhere else.
Man.
And they even had inflatable planes and inflatable tanks on the ground so that with camo netting over them, so that when the German spy planes would go over, they would see this and go, yes, the invasion force is in Dover. It's just like Hitler said it would be. But it wasn't. They were much further down the coast preparing to invade around Normandy, of course, and around there. So that was a real deception. There was a lot of deception in the war.
Yes.
Operation Mincemeat and all this kind of stuff.
So there was this Operation Mincemeat. I think we talked about this before.
There was just a movie about it. So yeah, that's why I think we
was
speculated.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So yeah, this was when we wanted to provide the Nazis with some fake Allied information. So we dressed up. I say we. They dressed up a. They found the body. They needed to find like a dead body to leave it on. So they found this dead body who was
recently dead homeless person. Yeah,
and they dressed him up as a member of the Royal Marines and made him a fictitious Captain William Martin.
And they made a completely fictitious life for him. Everything on him, you would look and you would think, yes, this is a real person's life. Everything, pictures of his sweetheart. Postcards, his bag was like weathered, his handwriting was a specific way, everything. So that you would not look at it and think, this is a clever ploy by the British. You would think, we fucking got lucky here. And they dumped him off the coast of Spain in what looked like a plane crash. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was recovered by the Spanish. And the Spanish, apparently, according to the movie that I recently watched, were determined to give him back to the British.
Yes.
They were like, don't worry, we're remaining neutral in this. Here's your dead officer. And of course, the whole plan was the Germans would take it. So they had to go in there and convince the Germans somehow to go and get this body. And they managed it. And they were sold. They thought it was real and they thought the intelligence was real. And apparently it helped in some way.
Yeah, I don't actually remember that bit about giving him back to the Brits, but certainly...
that might have been an invention of the film. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the Spanish were particularly on side.
No, but they also weren't actively in the war.
Sabotaging.
Like they weren't sort of. I mean, they'd had their own civil war and all the rest of it. They were fascists, but I don't think they were like, yeah, we'll help Hitler. They were sort of trying to remain relatively neutral. Spanish handling of the corpse. It was handed to a naval judge. Officially informed by the Spanish, report about the Admiralty had been found. So they told the Admiralty. I think they wanted to give it back.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh, crikey. Well, again, it's like one of these lies where you then have to keep lying afterwards.
Yeah.
You have to prepare the lies that they're going to tell us about the body, right? And if they do, what are we going to say?
Yeah.
We want him back because he's got secret information on him,
Right.
So yeah, there's like a whole bunch, but yeah, give it I love that sort of stuff where there's these people in this room coming up with ways to deceive the enemy.
It's very clever, yeah.
Have pretty big impacts, relatively speaking, on the outcome of operations, of battles, of things. I love that you can. I love that war, the intelligence war.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's very hard to.
The thing with The Imitation Game, I think it's called, which is about the Alan Turing movie with Benedict Cucumber in it, which is it's a really good movie. And the problem that they hit, of course, is that if once they crack Enigma, they can't actually use it. They have to use it as infrequently as they can get away with. Because if you used it all the time, the Germans would know it had been cracked. So they crack it and then they realize, shit, we can't intercept every convoy and every U-boat and all the rest of it, because then they'll know. So we actually have to continue knowing that something bad's going to happen, let it happen for the greater good. Those are the decisions where I think having to do this kind of stuff and then realize that you have to use it correctly must be heartbreaking. To know, shit, this convoy is going to get sunk, but we can't do anything about it because then they'll figure it out. It's tough.
I wonder what the right amount is, and obviously it had a huge effect. It saved like millions of lives, didn't it? Knowing, shortening the war, and knowing the tactical troop movements. This kind of stuff. Yeah, fascinating time. It would be so different now, obviously, with modern. It feels like now we just got such different ways. Though we got satellite information instead, and
it's like, can you imagine for D-Day, the Germans didn't know it was coming, right? They knew some kind of attack was coming, but they didn't know where or when. So you suddenly have this huge drop of paratroops. And you have all these ships and all these things, and they're calling up saying there's an invasion. They're like, it's a feint. It's a clever ploy. They're going to invade somewhere else. Like, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
That the Germans didn't commit all their forces to Normandy because they thought, it's a feint. They've been tricking us. Because all their intelligence for some time have been pointing to it being somewhere else, which was a big part of the deception, was convincing them that the intelligence they had was wrong. The best thing you can do is give the enemy the real information and then think it's false. Like, then they ignore everything that points to that. And they think, no, this is all part of that deception. It's all mind games. But yeah, I think it was, nowadays, you just have a fucking drone or a satellite. You'd know straight away, they're there. And if you look at this, but certainly to be topical, the war in Ukraine, it's interesting that how many of the deaths are just artillery, very long range artillery and missiles and rockets. It's hardly any actual people being shot. It's almost entirely unbelievably long range, like dozens and dozens of miles away, super pinpoint accuracy artillery and rockets and stuff. That's the number one way that people are getting killed. I don't know if that was always the case in war. Maybe it's always been artillery, but I certainly feel like there was a lot more people getting shot in World War II than there is nowadays. It's all just long range, crazy technology. I feel like, war is so like scary in a sense, because it's just so much luck. You could be the most well-trained foot soldier in history and you just get blown up by a stray bomb from your own side, right? Like, and I think it's always been that way to some extent, and you really have to roll the dice. That time in history was absolutely wild. And then following on from that, obviously, I've been watching a bit of For All Mankind, which is this it's quite good,
TV show on Apple. It's quite good, set in this alternative timeline where the rocket scientist who was building the Russian moon rockets doesn't, because in reality, I can't remember what his name is, but he died, unfortunately. Sergei Korolev, I think his name was.
Oh, really?
And so that really scuppered their moon. They never really managed to get their moon program together after that, and so it was kind of a done deal. But in this timeline, he survived, and so the Soviets were the first to land on the moon.
Well, but that and also NASA was more afraid. They'd had some other accident, and that had, like, I think it was the one that Gus Grissom died in. It might have been Apollo 1 or something like that. There was some mission where they burned up on the launch pad.
Apollo 1, yeah.
So that mission, in real life, that didn't slow them down. And they didn't say, we're going to have to be 10 times more cautious. Because in the whole point of the first episode of For All Mankind, no spoilers, is that it opens with the moon landing, and this is in the first 5 minutes, so this is not a spoiler. The Russians are landing on the moon. and all the Americans are watching, and this guy turns to the camera and he's holding the Soviet flag with the hammer and sickle, and he's like,
Cheeky breaky.
cheeky breaky, boyat, moon. And they're all like, boo, this is awful. But NASA had been there, ready to land, but had aborted just a week prior or whatever, because they were playing it safe and they were just being more cautious.
Yeah,
right.
They
were
ultra cautious, NASA, at the time. And rightly so, because, I mean, it's such a fascinating time in history because their kit and their technology was so, I want to say, kind of basic, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, like, there were all these different things that were going wrong constantly. And I mean, Apollo 13 as a story is obviously a brilliant story, and a classic movie as well, depicting all the things that went wrong and could have well gone wrong in that first Apollo mission, but just happened not to. And so like it was kind of a roll of the dice in many ways, but yeah, I mean, and this is again like it very early on in the series. The idea really is that the Soviets sort of land a woman on the moon, right? And so that, that leads the Americans to adopt, because every Apollo astronaut from all of them, they were like 20. No, they weren't. I think it was like 10 moon landings. They were all men.
I don't think there have been 10 moon landings. I think there have been 3.
Not? Like, there were quite a few Apollo missions.
3?
Really?
Something like that.
Oh, okay.
List of missions to the moon. I didn't think there'd been that many.
I thought there was only. I didn't think there was more than one. I thought there was only one.
So
no, they went back.
This is
we gotta go back.
I'm gonna Google how many people have walked on the moon. 12. Okay, not that many.
12 people.
12.
Yeah. So what is that? Is that 4 or 5 missions?
24 astronauts made the trip from Earth to Moon.
Yeah.
And Neil Armstrong, Ed Buzz Aldrin on Apollo 11. So two on Apollo 11.
Yeah.
2 on Apollo 12.
Yeah.
2 on Apollo 14. So 13 obviously failed.
That's
2 on Apollo 15.
missions.
2 on
4.
Apollo 16 and 2 Apollo 17.
So 6.
Apollo 13 was the Tom Hanks movie,
4,
right?
5, 6.
Apollo 13 was the one where they were on their way there.
Yeah.
And a tank blasted the side of the ship off. It was the oxygen. They were leaking
Tom
oxygen
Hanks
into
and
space.
Gary Sinise and who was the other guy?
Well, Gary Sinise was left behind because they thought he had measles.
Oh, that's right.
So
yeah.
Kevin Bacon went in his place.
Kevin Bacon
and Bill Paxton was the other guy. Yeah.
So so they would have made up an extra what?
I think they would have been the third or fourth.
15. That would have been 15 in total had they made.
Yeah.
Had they made it.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be more in the next few years.
Yeah.
Artemis 1 launched the other day. It's on the way. Sent a picture back of Earth.
Yeah.
Looking like a blob.
Yeah.
And once it's going to go there and put some robots or something down there and have a poke around, and then we're going to send some more people up there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why are we going back to the moon? And it's because they want to get practice at building a moon base at Mars.
Yes.
You want to do it when you're just a few days from Earth.
But they also want to stage from the moon. They're building a space station to orbit the moon, and that's where they will go to first before they go to Mars to refuel and get their stuff ready and whatever.
So can they? Are we at the stage where there's any way to make the fuel on the moon? Because I know that was a thing in the show where they were talking about. They can dig stuff out from the moon and make fuel, so you can have a much more fuel on something that has to take off from the moon because it's 1/8 gravity.
Yeah,
you don't need to use so much fuel just getting into space. You hardly have to use any.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think for a long time the dream has been to build everything either in orbit or on the moon, and I mean, the moon would be easier because it's on the ground.
I think even if they can't make fuel in space, they can certainly they can do unmanned missions to just deliver resources, right?
There's water on the moon.
A staging point at around the moon or whatever. You know what I mean?
But if there's water on the moon, they could make fuel.
Sure.
Like they could do it. So you wouldn't need to schlep all the fuel up
but
into orbit.
if they're years and years away from that, certainly in the meantime they can just like the frequency at which they're launching rockets into space now from Earth and carrying all sorts of stuff
many.
Means that they could probably just almost get like a convoy going, like leading up to whatever the mission is. They could just send resources over there, either leave the stuff there, like land it on the moon or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that, like obviously that technology all exists now, right? Like with the boosters coming back down to and landing on a platform in the sea and all that sort of stuff. So like, there's lots of options. It's exciting, but most of it seems to be sort of like spearhead pioneered by a madman who bought a social network. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like it's as exciting as it is, there's always going to be like a bit of a sour taste to it all too, right? Because it's just like, oh, come on, man. Like,
I mean, I like to think that even though I do think he's a nut. I know that I think people go overboard either way. I don't think he's the end of the world.
No,
he's a genius. I think he's just kind of a putz.
He should just not really speak that often.
He needs to stop talking.
Yes.
That is 100% a thing he needs to do. Stop talking, stop tweeting.
Yeah. Keep your dumb opinions to yourself, and you know, like that applies to a lot of people as well. You know, like
me. It implies definitely
but I've been
to
watching.
Me, but I'm not a billionaire.
I've been watching Father Ted recently. Like we just started rewatching it just because we haven't watched it in years, and it is hilarious. It's still very funny. But the entire time you're watching it, you just can't help but feel like kind of bad for the fact that, you know, one of the guys who wrote it is kind of like an outspoken knob on social media as well. And you think of like J.K. Rowling and all these other people that just can't fucking shut up, basically. And you just think, why did you bother speaking in the first place? Like, okay, we get it. You have some shitty, terrible opinions. Just keep them to yourself like everyone else does. Like, why do you have to make something that everybody likes and then turn out to be a massive fucking knob because you can't shut up for 2 seconds? You know what I mean? Like, You're right. It's a real shame. But the show is still amazing. It's so fucking fun.
Before we continue, you've heard me talk before about how important it is to have a VPN to protect your online privacy.
Yeah.
But choosing a VPN you can trust is equally as important.
Yeah.
So we here at the Triforce podcast proudly recommend in full confidence that ExpressVPN is the best VPN on the market. I use it on my computer, use it on my phone. I recommend ExpressVPN. It doesn't log your activity online. There's loads of cheap or free ones that sell your data anyway. ExpressVPN doesn't do that. ExpressVPN has a protocol called Lightway, which means that I don't even notice that it's on. You know, PFLAX, you might be downloading the latest game.
Yeah.
Hello.
You can still do that on ExpressVPN. It doesn't slow your speeds down. And sometimes you might want to hide your presence on that game. You know, you don't want some guy that you've shot in the head to come and find your data and your IP and hunt you down.
Because he said he can press a button and blow up my console, so I wouldn't want that.
No, you would not want that to happen.
So ExpressVPN is very easy to set up. Even your grandparents could do it. You just fire up the app, tap one button, and it is the #1 VPN in the world. So expressvpn.com/Triforce. You can get it today with an extra 3 months free. Please check that out and get yourself 3 months free and protect yourself in your online browsing and activity.
Yeah.
So a couple of things happened in the news this week. We've got 8 billion humans on the planet.
Yes.
The 8th billionth human has been born, which is exciting.
I'm responsible for what feels like maybe 1 billion of them at times. God damn.
It's you and that doctor that donated his sperm.
Yes,
it's the one that Lewis has.
I
no
did it the
with
traditional way though, with the delivery mechanism.
The old baby maker.
My boner.
Sure. Speaking of billionaires or dead ones, an Apple fan has paid $218,000 for an old pair of Steve Jobs' sandals. That's right. Apple cult fans are weird. So that's what you get. Maybe they were queuing outside the auction for it. I don't know.
I wonder if they stink. Or do you think they just are just a bit like leathery smelling? Like all the bacteria is probably gone now.
God, imagine he probably went through a pair of them every day. He was that rich, you know. He could have anyway. The Amazon MMO, I think New World.
Yes.
They've raised the tax rate in game,
right? So
it's higher than Jeff Bezos pays IRL.
Right. It's a shame.
I think that's to stabilize
that game had like a lot
the
going
economy.
for it, but it just I don't know. Like, I think they just focused on some of the dumbest aspects of the game rather than just making the bits that were fun good.
That's weird.
I think they had like a server reset or something recently, and people were. There was a little bit of a resurgence. People wanted to play it again, but it quickly just everybody left it again.
Not interested. The Games Master, the classic UK show, is going to return next year.
I know who's going to be the host of that.
Excited about that. Who is?
My friend Frankie, I think.
Oh, really?
Not Clarkson.
Really?
I think it's going to be her.
I think not Clarkson. No,
Clarkson.
I think it's Trevor McDonald.
What the hell else is he going to do now?
I think Trevor McDonald might be the Games Master, like the big face.
Frankie
Ward.
Frankie
presented
it in 2021.
like the new Zuzi, Trevor McDonald from ITV.
I think so.
It
I
already
think
came back in 2021. All right, that's not really
she
news.
She filmed
then,
a whole series.
I didn't watch the last series, so who cares?
Sorry, Frankie.
Apparently, Rockstar had a conversation with Eminem about doing a GTA movie.
Right.
But it never happened.
Eminem has been he's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well.
See, now, do they just let anybody in? Because that's not rock nor roll.
No. It doesn't have to necessarily be rock and roll. It's just the name of the association. So
why call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if you're just going to let rappers in?
No, well...
why not have a rapping Hall of Fame? Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because it would just be like, I think this way, like, it's an old name, but it still applies. And I think it's just based on, like, record sales, popularity.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is irrelevant, and they're trying to stay relevant, that's all. KFC put out an app alert on Wednesday saying... It's Memorial Day for Kristallnacht. Treat yourself with some tender cheese on your crispy chicken. Now, for those who don't know, Kristallnacht is the night of broken glass where the Germans, I think, took over.
Yeah,
the Nazis. No. They smashed all the windows of Jewish shopkeepers.
Brilliant stuff.
So they went around and smashed all of these windows, and it was like the start of them saying, we're here now, and we can do whatever the fuck we want. So Kristallnacht was obviously, especially for German Jews, is like, not something you want to commemorate with, say,
cheesy chicken,
a big bucket of chicken.
Crispy cheese on your chicken, yeah.
It's pretty clear to me they didn't know what Kristallnacht was. That sounds nice, and it does.
Well, I think they just look at the calendar events and are like, automated calendar anniversary.
No, it's some 15-year-old social media fucking idiot who's like, Crystal Night, that sounds like fun. A night of crystals? Yeah, sure. We're KFC Big Bucket Challenge. How many can you eat on Crystal Night? No idea.
Your 15-year-old intern impersonation just sounds like Headmassive. Like every time. It's just him.
By the way, talking of KFC... I've been playing a lot of Football Manager lately, unrelated to the story, but it means between games and stuff while the game's processing, I have a lot more time to fart about. And in addition to looking around a number of British towns and realizing how dog shit most of our country is once you get into the urban areas, I looked up about the history of KFC and Colonel Sanders in particular. It's a very long story. It would be a Triforce in itself, in all honesty. He led a very, very odd and mazy and meandering career before he became Colonel Sanders and his chicken became this global phenomenon. Yeah. So if you're interested, we could do it next week, or you could just look it up. It's a Wikipedia article. It's pretty long. And he had like a million fucking jobs and tried a million little businesses, and he never got like super, super rich off KFC. That all came, afterwards with all the franchising and the way that big companies are run these days. Yeah. But it is an interesting story.
He wasn't even a real colonel.
Not true.
He was an actual colonel.
Not true. Not true. He was not a military colonel, but he was a different kind of colonel. So you can be given...
All right. Well, I'm talking about the colonel that most
Really?
people will be familiar with, which is a military colonel.
So he was commissioned as a Kentucky colonel, and the Kentucky colonel is the highest title of honor bestowed by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It's like an honorary colonelcy. So if you're saying that that's not sufficient colonelness,
it's not for me. I'm sorry.
What is?
Well, think of all the actual colonels out there who have had to earn their rank, like from being in the military and stuff. And then this guy just comes along. He's like, "Hey, try my chicken," and becomes a colonel. No, thanks. Like that's not how it works. That sounds like a free pass to me.
I don't think that's fair.
That sounds like a free pass.
What if I get to be a colonel in peacetime and I never ever fire a gun or see action, which definitely happened. Some people get to be colonel without doing any fucking fighting.
Yeah,
they just get promoted.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they're still a colonel. Apparently, they're a better colonel than Colonel Sanders. I'm just saying, I'm not so sure.
Apparently, Kentucky in 2008 was issuing as many as 16,500 colonelships per year.
Okay,
that's dumb.
I
as
didn't
hell.
know that. All right, well, I retract everything. I thought it was a rare.
So basically, the entire Sanders family, probably all colonels. Like, it's not even just him. Papa colonel, we got mama
you
colonel.
You could literally just pay $5,000 and you'll be a colonel. Yeah. It's not hard.
It's like buying that lordship for Scotland or whatever.
Cash for colonels.
Yeah, cash for colonels. This scandal's got to end. Cash for chicken, I don't mind. The cash for colonels has to stop.
Oh, man.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's fascinating. I think you can always get around. I think if you ask anyone about that, I think they'd assume he was just a military colonel, but just a weird sort of guy. Well, there you go. Fascinating stuff. That was Triforce today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I've got to go and let the plumber in. So
nice.
I've got to go, but we'll see. We'll pick this up next week. So stay tuned. Thanks, everyone. We love you.
Goodbye.
All right, goodbye.